guys, HuShang here. Welcome to another StarCraft 2 lesson. In today's video, we're going to be looking at a Terran vs Zerg game I played on the ladder. And this is a game against Wind, who at the moment is a low GM, but I believe he used to be more in the mid or maybe even higher mid tiers when he was playing a little more. And this is a unique game because he's going to open up with some really early pressure. I'm not really sure what he's doing with his gases here, but he's opening up with a really early pool. And he's also going to play some wacky 2-base stuff afterwards. So I think this is a really good replay to show for anybody who's struggling in TVZ against some weird stuff where you have to deviate. And I think this is really common in the lower and the middle leagues, where players are kind of just doing their own thing and not really following the pro meta. And so it's not really clear what you're supposed to be doing. So this is one of those things that I'd figure out myself as well, because you just don't see Cero playing against like 2-base muta very often. Or, not Cero, but, you know, Maru or whatever. So, yeah, so he's opened up with a really fast pool. And it looks like he's aiming for a fast speed as well. And I'm just opening up standard, so I went Rax first and then gas. And I'm just doing a very common Rax Scout. So a lot of the other matchups you have to go a little earlier, but Rax Scout in TVZ is totally fine. And you can see here on the production tab, he's got 6 lings on the way. He's getting his speed, and he's going to take an expansion shortly, I believe. So we come up here, we see the lings. It kind of looks like a 12 pool, but the hatch is late, so I was kind of confused actually. But my response lately towards this is just to delay the reactor. So I was trying to figure out, you know, like, do I get this really quickly and keep the Reaper back at home, or you know, do I rush Hellions? What do I do in these situations where they're playing these really fast pools? Probably into another all-in is really common. Usually like a Ravager all-in. So my main response now is to just keep pumping out Marines. And I like to make 3. And then 3 Marines plus the Reaper can fill the bunker. And then later on we can use the Reaper to scout again and see what's going on. But this will fill up the bunker, and so if he does try to do any, you know, early link pressure and try to cancel your third or natural or kill the SCV and just be annoying, then you'll be totally fine. And the only downside of this is that your add-ons are a little bit more awkward than usual, but it's not a huge deal. You can just make a Hellion out of the factory, or you can even just go straight into a tech lab if you've scouted that they're doing the Roach Ravager all-in follow-up. Also, I'm getting my starport, so we're kind of transitioning over into normal play after this opening. And usually what I do is I send this Reaper across a little earlier, actually, to make sure that he's, you know, not doing any crazy stuff behind this. But I kind of know this player. I kind of know that he likes to play 2-base muta. So maybe I'm cutting a couple corners here, but you should definitely send the Reaper out. And my standard build TVZ is just to go into Hellion plus Liberator. Very, very normal, straightforward stuff. And what I've done here is just put a depot just in case he's going for a Nidus later on. So we'll get that. And then 3 Hellions we're going to move out. Now we don't really need to do any damage with these, but the idea with these is that you want to double check and make sure he's not going for any sort of like mid-range Roach Ravager all-in. So you come in here, you don't need to do anything really, just poke around, see if you can get any information. Like, so for example, here we see a Spine Crawler. So if his plan was to do an all-in, he wouldn't be getting a Spine Crawler, right? So we can tell that he wants to play defensive. And so if he wants to play defensive on 2-base, he definitely has to be going for some very fast tech. And so right here, I'm already determining like, okay, this is probably Mutalisks. Makes the most sense if he's getting a Spine. And also we know this guy likes to play Mutalisks, so that fits pretty naturally into what we're kind of already thinking. You can see him sticking it here, which is kind of interesting. If you scanned the main, you wouldn't see it. Maybe if you scanned over here, you would also miss it. So kind of a cool spot. And then I'm going to grab my third CC. I'm going to swap over. And what I've started doing against 2-base Muta is going for really fast Thors instead of tanks. I think is the strongest counter. So I pop in here. I see a bunch of Lings. So this just confirms again that he's likely going for a Mutalisk. Although I haven't actually seen the Spire yet. And I've thrown down the Armory. I'm getting my extra barracks. And I'm going to get my E-base. I'm not going to make too many units right away. Because his Spire is still going to be a fair bit off. And so we're going to have lots of time to get up some turrets. And set up our production before we build units. And this is called powering. If you haven't done this before, it's, you know, cutting your units, getting all the buildings first, and then making the units. And that gives you a little bit of a boost in terms of, you know, how much you can get out. So we poked him a little bit. We're kind of being annoying because I just want to force him to multitask a little bit. So just kind of, even though there's nothing to do over here, if I just poke in and let his Spinecrawler hit me, he's going to get an alert on the minimap. And so that's going to make him use some attention over here, which is going to make it more likely that my Liberator can do a bit of damage. But of course, we're not going to get up here. He's on 2-base. We don't need to do anything anyways. And so eventually I'm just going to pull back. But importantly, behind this, after we've set up our regular production, which is 3 racks, 1 factory, 1 starport, 2 eBays, and then I'm sneaking in the armory specifically because I want to make Thors quickly. So once we've got all this set up, even still, I'm not going to prioritize the Marines yet. I'm going to focus more on the Thor and the turrets. So you'll see me here starting to grab those in just a second. So I put one over here on the edge. He could sneak around the back, but this is going to basically make it a lot harder for him to get any damage done, and he's going to have to commit more. And if he does commit, you know, into this back area, it's going to be easier for me to trap him. So you could make it easier on yourself by just putting the turret here, but this is going to prevent more damage just with a little bit more effort. So I put one turret here, swapping my barracks over. You can see I'm still not making any Marines, which is really important actually, because if you try to make Marines too early, you're not going to have turrets up, and then, you know, you might have the Marines to use to defend the mutas, but you're going to be playing this like whack-a-mole where you're chasing the mutas around. And so I think it's a lot easier if you just set up these turrets, make sure you're super defendant, and then go into your Marines afterwards. But you see this really early Thor. I think this is key. This, honestly, getting this fast Thor makes this defense so easy. So if you're not doing that and you're getting tanks, I think that's a mistake. So you can see here he has 6 Mutalisk, 7 Mutalisk actually. So it's not that many. If he's going for this really fast Mutalisk, he can't really afford you know, too many of them. So it's not a big deal to not have too many units. And you can also see that I'm cutting SCVs here, and I'm getting up these extra 2 barracks. You don't have to do this. In fact, if your opponent's pretty strong, you might not want to do this, because it is going to put you a little more committed to an attack. But I feel like I'm pretty ahead based on how many Zerglings we saw him make earlier. And my Liberator also got, I think, at least 6 kills or so. So I'm feeling like we're in a pretty good position. And so because of that, what I like to do as an aggressive player is just set up for a big attack. As like whenever I'm ahead, I set up for a big attack. So that's the idea with these racks, but you don't have to do that. Although this could be a good idea to do anyways if you're playing any other sort of 2-base builds like 2-base Roach, for example. I think it's really good to throw down these extra 2 barracks no matter what, just so you have that little bit more production in case he decides to all in. So he's a little bit annoying here because of this turret. Maybe it would have been better if I saved some room over here to put my extra 2 barracks or something like that, so I don't have to get this other turret up. But so a little bit annoying there, but not a huge deal. And now we have these turrets up, we're feeling pretty comfortable. And so next thing I want to do is start pushing him. I don't want to just chill because I have these extra 2 barracks I set up, and if we just hang back, then he could continue building a ton of Mutalisks, and eventually he's going to be able to overpower our turrets. And this is pretty common when Protoss plays against mass muta as well, is you kind of want to put on a little bit of pressure so that they are forced to make some banelings and spend some of their gas on things other than Mutalisk. So we push out here. I want to push now. My upgrades are, at least the marine upgrades are almost done. But first thing we need to do is just secure this with the turret, so he's not counterattacking and making the game chaotic. So if you find your games are getting chaotic, like if you find you're playing against Mutalisk and they're running into your main, then they're running into your third, and everything's getting crazy, then what you need to do is do all these little checks and make sure you're safe before the game gets to that state. Because once the game gets to a state where everything's chaotic, it's really hard to eventually secure your bases and stabilize. So you don't want to let it to get to that state at all. So my turrets are all set up. We're going to be totally safe against that. And now we can push out and try to do some damage. Now he does catch some of my Hellions here, which is actually kind of annoying. Those could have been turned into Hellbats, and that would have been much stronger, made my push much stronger here. But nice micro by him, nice awareness. Now, one thing that I want to improve on this is still kind of a work in progress because I'm a perfectionist and I feel like it's getting close, but it's not quite there. It's not like top 50 GM reaction yet. So I feel like what Terran should do here is once they make, let's say, 2 Thors, they should start transitioning over into drilling claws. Maybe not their second factory yet, but definitely into drilling claws, and start setting up for more widow mines, because making Thors the whole time, eventually they're gonna get so many banelings that it's pretty hard to push like this. It's actually really easy early on here, but later on it's gonna be a little more tricky. So I think Terran should start transitioning into widow mines here. So we do this push, we're obviously expecting a lot of banelings to counter us with the mutas. And so what you want to try and do, although I don't do this perfectly, is put your Thors at the front so that they can tank some of the banelings, or at least make it hard for them to micro. And then have your Marines close enough to be attacking as well. So these are maybe a little far back, to be honest. But we're pressuring his hatch, we're forcing him to engage us if he wants to defend it. He actually comes in here once it's dead, so I mean it's already a victory for us as long as we trade somewhat evenly. But here's where I kind of mess up the engagement a little bit, is he's able to surround my Thor with the Lings, and there's not enough Marines firing to help protect this, which is not ideal. But now the fight starts to be, more in our favor. Marines are in the fight, and he can't really kill the Thor, so the mutas can't engage. And if you want right here, what you can do is just stim in and click on the banelings. So you can just hold down A and then left click on one baneling at a time. You could also hold shift, but I think it's you're more prone to error if you do that. So I would just hold down A and click on each one. But if you're not comfortable doing that, which is pretty hard to be honest, although most GMs will tell you it's super easy, but if you mess it up, you lose all your Marines, so you were warned. So the safer way to do it is just back up here and rotate. And this is a really common technique in GM that everybody uses, and probably another technique every GM will tell you is super obvious. But what you should do is rotate here, basically so that you have more area off creep again to engage them and just deny their base, because you know, you might think, okay, he's almost dead. I killed his base. I won the game. The game's over. I'll just push in here, take the fight, and then GG, right? But if you do mess that up, then oftentimes he's back in the game. This game's pretty one-sided, to be honest, but he could easily get back in the game. And so what you want to do instead is just keep denying bases and trying to force fights in your favor. And this can be true for the other races too, but Terran especially, you're fighting off creep here at this other base, and so it's really advantageous to rotate. So now we're off creep again. We're threatening this third base. He has to fight us, or we're just gonna keep getting more ahead. So we're really putting a lot of pressure on him to do something, and a lot of players will just kind of YOLO into you. I feel like he had to go there, but he's I think more experienced players will be more comfortable with just backing up, even if it's maybe not the right call. I don't think there is a right call either way here, but yeah, he's more comfortable just taking this next base. So what we're gonna do is same thing as before. We're just gonna rotate and maneuver over to this side and do the same thing until he decides to fight us, basically. Or until we have so many units that it doesn't really matter if we fight on the creep. We just have such a significant advantage. We can just kind of do whatever we want. And this next fight, you're going to see why I think I should get Widow Mines a little earlier. Because I just have so many Marines that I could micro it perfectly, but it's a lot of perfect micro that you would need to take these fights efficiently. So I think it's too hard basically to make it worth it. Like here, you can see we're trading pretty evenly, I would say, maybe even a little worse. But I mean, look how much micro I did to achieve that. So a couple Widow Mines at this stage would make it a lot easier to play against Ling Bane and a lot harder for the Muta player, which is also nice. Making the game harder for your opponent is probably the most efficient way of taking games off good players. So we traded. Again, we're really far ahead from the early game against his pressure and from countering his 2-base tech. So we still have quite a bit of army here. And this is another key thing in TVZ, I think, is if you can keep up the pressure like this, oftentimes it's very hard for Zerg to manage everything. And they might just not make Banelings right after a fight because they're doing other stuff and they're, you know, trying to invest in upgrades and more mutas, etc. So oftentimes you can just win a fight and then push again, and they just won't have any Banes ready. So that's what I'm looking for here. I'm just scanning. I see the mutas. I scan over here again, and I see him morphing the Banes, which basically means he didn't have any already. And so I just move right on in and he GG's with a wall. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this game. Hope you learned something. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. And if you want more personal one-on-one lessons, then feel free to hit me up on my Discord, which is in the description, or at my email, which is also in the description. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one.